The small urn trembled in Ray Holloway's weathered hands as security guards escorted him away from the cruise ship boarding gate. His wife's ashes, the woman who had waited 50 years for this moment, were being treated like contraband. The July Miami heat pressed down on him like a weight, but nothing compared to the crushing realization that he might fail her one final time. Welcome back to our channel, where we share real stories that matter. If you're new here, hit that subscribe button. We post incredible true stories every week that you won't want to miss. Before we dive deeper into Ray's story, I want to hear from you. Write in the comments below, how old are you and what city are you watching from? Your engagement helps us reach more people with stories like this. Ray Holloway, 72 years old, stood on the Miami port dock in his best Navy suit, a bronze star pinned to his lapel. 5 years ago to the day, his wife Margaret had lost her battle with cancer. They'd planned this cruise to celebrate their 50th wedding anniversary, a dream they'd saved for through decades of his naval service and her work as a school teacher. "Ray, promise me something," Margaret had whispered during those final weeks, her voice barely audible above the hospital machines. "Take me on that cruise anyway. Scatter my ashes at sunrise from the ship's stern," just like we talked about. He'd kept that promise close to his heart for 5 years, working extra shifts at the hardware store where he'd taken a job after retirement, saving every penny for this solo voyage. The single ticket had cost him 3 months' salary, but some promises transcended money. The check-in counter at Paradise Cruise Lines buzzed with excited families and couples. Ray approached the desk, his small carry-on bag in one hand, the ceramic urn carefully cradled in the other. Behind the counter stood a heavy-set woman with bleached blonde hair and a permanent scowl etched across her face. "Next," she barked, not looking up from her computer screen. Ray stepped forward, placing his ticket and identification on the counter. "Ray Holloway, I have a cabin reservation for—" "What's in the container?" The clerk's eyes had locked onto the urn, her expression shifting from boredom to suspicion. "These are my wife's ashes," Ray explained calmly. "She passed 5 years ago. We had planned this trip together, and I'd like to—" "Absolutely not!" The woman's voice cut through his explanation like a blade. "Company policy strictly prohibits biological material of any kind. I don't care what your story is, that's not getting on my ship." Ray felt his chest tighten. He'd called ahead, researched the regulations, even spoken to a customer service representative who'd assured him it would be fine with proper documentation. "Ma'am, I have all the required paperwork. The crematorium certificate, the death certificate, and I spoke with your customer service department last month. They confirmed—" "I don't care what some phone operator told you," she snapped, her voice rising. "I'm telling you right now, no biological materials. Period. You can either check that bag or leave." 2 young tourists in line behind him started snickering. One whispered to the other, "Look at the old guy trying to smuggle his dead wife onto the boat." Ray's jaw tightened, but he maintained his composure. "This isn't biological material. These are cremated remains, and I have every legal right." "Security!" the clerk shouted, reaching for her radio. "I need assistance at Gate 3. We have a passenger refusing to comply with boarding procedures." "Please," Ray said, his voice steady but desperate. "My wife served this country too. She volunteered at the VA hospital for 20 years. This cruise was her dying wish." "I don't care if she was the president's wife," the clerk snarled. "You're creating a disturbance. Either surrender that container or leave the premises immediately." 2 security guards approached, their hands resting on their radios. Ray looked at the urn, then at the massive cruise ship beyond the windows. Margaret's ship. Their ship. "Sir, we need you to step away from the counter," one guard said, not unkindly but firmly. Ray nodded slowly. He wouldn't cause a scene. Margaret had always said that dignity mattered more than being right. As the guards escorted him toward the exit, a young woman with a press badge discreetly raised her phone. Sarah Chen, a journalist for the Miami Herald, had been at the port working on a story about tourism recovery when she witnessed the entire exchange. The video was shaky but clear. An elderly veteran in his dress uniform, holding an urn, being removed from a cruise ship boarding area while other passengers laughed. Sarah posted it to Twitter with a simple caption, "Veteran denied boarding cruise ship while trying to fulfill dying wife's wish. Where's the humanity?" Let Ray sail. If this story is hitting you as hard as it hit me, smash that like button. We're just getting started, and you won't believe what happens next. Ray sat on a bench outside the port terminal, the urn resting beside him. The cruise ship towered above, its cheerful colors mocking him in the afternoon sun. Passengers were still boarding, their laughter and excitement drifting through the air. He pulled out his phone to call his daughter in Oregon, to tell her he'd failed. But before he could dial, his phone began buzzing with notifications, text after text from unknown numbers. "We're praying for you, Ray. Don't give up. Your wife is watching." Confused, he opened his Twitter app. The video had 50, 0 views, then 100, 0, then 500, 0. The hashtag #LetRaySail was trending in Florida, then nationally. Comments poured in from veterans, widows, and complete strangers. "This man served our country, and this is how we treat him? Paradise Cruise Lines should be ashamed. That employee needs to be fired immediately. My husband died in Afghanistan. This could be me someday." Local news stations picked up the story. Within 2 hours, Paradise Cruise Line's social media accounts were flooded with angry comments and threats of boycotts. Their customer service phones rang non-stop. At exactly 4:47 p.m., 4 hours after Ray had been escorted from the terminal, a figure in a crisp white uniform emerged from the cruise ship. Captain Michael Rodriguez, a 20-year veteran of the Merchant Marine, walked down the gangway with purposeful strides. He'd been in his cabin preparing for departure when his first officer showed him the viral video. Captain Rodriguez had served 2 tours in the Coast Guard before joining Paradise Cruise Lines. He recognized something in Ray's eyes, that the desk clerk had missed the quiet dignity of a man who'd served something greater than himself. "Mr. Holloway?" The captain approached the bench where Ray still sat, the urn beside him like a faithful companion. Ray looked up, squinting in the afternoon sun. "Yes?" "I'm Captain Rodriguez. I want to personally apologize for what happened today." The captain's voice was steady, formal, but warm. "That employee violated both company policy and basic human decency. You and your wife deserve better." Ray started to stand, but the captain gestured for him to remain seated and sat down beside him. "I've read about your service record, Mr. Holloway. 26 years in the Navy, 3 deployments. You helped keep this country safe, and your wife supported you every step of the way. How did you—" "Social media works fast these days. Half the internet is talking about you right now." Captain Rodriguez smiled. "The other half is calling for that clerk's head." Ray looked at the urn. "I just wanted to keep my promise to her." "And you will." The captain stood and extended his hand. "Mr. Holloway, would you and your wife like to board my ship? What would you do in this situation? Would you have fought harder at the check-in counter, or would you have handled it like Ray did? Drop your thoughts in the comments. I read every single one." Ray's hands shook as he took the captain's offered help standing up. But the employee said, "That employee has been relieved of duty," Captain Rodriguez said firmly. "She'll be looking for new employment tomorrow. What she did was inexcusable." Together, they walked toward the gangway. Other passengers had gathered on the deck, many having seen the viral video. Instead of mockery, Ray saw respect in their faces. Several people applauded as he climbed aboard. "We've prepared a special suite for you," the captain explained as they walked through the ship's gleaming corridors. "And tomorrow at dawn, if you're willing, I'd like to personally assist with the ceremony." Ray stopped walking. The weight of 5 years of grief, guilt, and loneliness crashed over him all at once. "Captain, I don't know what to say." "You don't need to say anything, sir. Just let me help you keep your promise." That evening, as the ship pulled away from Miami's glittering skyline, Ray stood on his private balcony holding the urn. The ocean stretched endlessly before them, dark and mysterious under the star-filled sky. "We made it, Margaret," he whispered to the night wind. "We're finally sailing." The next morning arrived with a spectacular sunrise. The ship had anchored in international waters, far from the Florida coast. Captain Rodriguez met Ray on the stern deck, which had been cordoned off for privacy. The ceremony was simple. No crowd, no cameras, just Ray, the captain, and the endless ocean. Ray opened the urn with trembling fingers, remembering Margaret's laugh, her touch, her dreams. "She would have loved this," Ray said, his voice barely audible above the gentle lapping of waves. "Tell me about her," Captain Rodriguez said softly. Ray smiled through his tears. She was a teacher, loved kids. Always said the ocean reminded her of possibilityless and full of mystery. He paused, looking at the sunrise painting the water gold. She used to say that when people died, they became part of something bigger. The wind, the water, the light. With gentle care, Ray scattered Margaret's ashes into the morning breeze. They danced on the wind for a moment before settling into the ocean, becoming one with the vast blue expanse. "Goodbye, sweetheart," Ray whispered. "Thank you for 50 beautiful years." Captain Rodriguez placed a hand on the old veteran's shoulder. "She's free now, and so are you." The story didn't end there. Sarah Chen, the journalist who'd filmed the original incident, had continued following Ray's journey. Paradise Cruise Lines, facing massive public pressure and potential lawsuits, fired the discriminatory employee and issued a formal apology. More importantly, they announced the creation of the Memorial Voyage program, offering free cruises to veterans and their families for scattering ceremonies, with specially trained staff to handle such requests with dignity and respect. Subscribe to our channel right now if you want to see more stories like this one. We're building a community of people who believe that everyone deserves to be treated with basic human dignity. By the time Ray returned to Miami 3 days later, the video of his departure ceremony had been viewed over 5 million times. News outlets across the country had picked up the story. Ray found himself reluctantly famous, but he used his platform wisely. "This wasn't about me," he told a CNN reporter at the port. "This was about Margaret, and about treating people, especially those who've served, with respect. We all have stories. We all have losses. A little kindness goes a long way." Paradise Cruise Lines experienced a surge in bookings from military families. The Memorial Voyage program became so popular they had to expand it to 3 ships in their fleet. The discriminatory employee, identified as Karen Westfield, found herself unemployable in the tourism industry. Her social media profiles were flooded with criticism, and several former co-workers came forward with stories of her previous discriminatory behavior toward customers. Ray returned to his small apartment in Coral Gables, but his life had changed. Veterans organizations invited him to speak. Grief counseling centers asked him to share his story. He began volunteering at the same VA hospital where Margaret had worked, helping other widowed veterans process their loss. 6 months later, Ray received an unexpected call. Captain Rodriguez was retiring from Paradise Cruise Lines to start his own company focused on memorial voyages and veteran services. He wanted Ray to be his first partner. "I've been thinking about what you said that morning," the captain explained during their meeting, "about Margaret becoming part of something bigger. I think this company could be part of something bigger too." Ray looked at the business proposal, then at the framed photo of Margaret on his desk. She was smiling, her eyes full of the mischief he'd fallen in love with 53 years ago. "Here's my final question for you. Do you think Ray should have fought harder from the beginning? Or did everything happen exactly as it needed to? And what do you think Karen Westfield really deserved for her actions? Let me know in the comments." 1 year later, Holloway Rodriguez Memorial Cruises launched with a single refurbished ship. Their mission statement was simple: honoring life, love, and service with dignity and respect. Ray stood on the deck of their first vessel, watching families say goodbye to their loved ones as the sun painted the ocean in brilliant oranges and pinks. Margaret's urn sat empty on his nightstand at home now, but her presence filled every sunrise at sea. The company's waiting list stretched 6 months. Word had spread through military communities, hospices, and grief support groups. They weren't just offering cruises, they were offering closure, healing, and the chance to say goodbye with grace. Ray never remarried, but he wasn't lonely anymore. Every voyage brought new stories, new families, new opportunities to help others navigate their grief. He'd found his purpose in Margaret's final gift. As their ship returned to port on that anniversary morning, Ray received a text message from an unknown number. "Mr. Holloway, my husband died in Iraq last month. I saw your story. Could you help me give him the send-off he deserves?" Ray smiled, feeling Margaret's presence in the ocean breeze. Some promises, once kept, created endless new beginnings. The woman who'd been denied a cruise anniversary had become the inspiration for thousands of others to find peace in their final farewells. He typed back quickly, "We'll take care of everything. When would you like to sail?"